welcome back. We're on the last leg now. And we're particularly delighted to welcome Nick Bois, Member of Parliament for Enfield North, to the G50. Nick worked for 25 years in the marketing and events industry before being elected as MP for Enfield North in 2010. For the first time that I can remember, we have an elected MP actually taking an active interest in our industry. And Nick has established the all-party parliamentary group, which has published a report on the international competitiveness of the UK events industry, which is interesting given what the panel were talking about earlier. He's a great user of Twitter, which is something else they were talking about, and, wait for this, he's given up the chance to be at the Rochester and Stroud by-election today to be here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Bois.
Well, many of you are involved in bids and pitches, and when you evaluate whether it's worth going to do the bid and the pitch, you want to value your chances of whether you'll win or not. So it's quite an easy decision to come here tonight. Please don't put that on Twitter. And I should warn you, if I sound at all conservative, that's not my politics, it's the fact there's a camera there. And these are the sort of events that you can get in trouble for because you feel relaxed among friends from an old industry and get lured into roads that you don't want to go down. But it is a real pleasure to be here. I think actually it's longer than 25 years. I was just sitting there adding it back. I first got into the exhibition industry in 1989. Like all good businesses in those days, it started in a pub. We thought it'd be a good idea. We thought it needed a little bit more of a business plan, so we went back to the pub a second time, and off we went. And the journey's been amazing. It gets in your blood, that industry, and we broadened and got into events, and eventually had to grow up. We got an accountant on board, which was a very, very wise move. And we enjoyed the ups and downs of the industry, and my goodness, this industry has had its ups and downs. We've gone from the highs to the lows. We've looked over the edge occasionally, and we've enjoyed tremendous success at times. So in many ways, leaving it was a real wrench, because becoming an MP, you actually have no executive power whatsoever. You are a legislator. You essentially vote on laws. A lot of people think you have power. In fact, and I never tire of saying this, the only executive decision I took in the first 6 months of 2010 as an MP was to choose my office furniture and phone. And that is a big difference when you've been running your business and making decisions, as so many of you have been doing. But it also was important to me, and went back to one of the early reasons why I got into politics was about business. And I always felt that our industry, and defining our industry is enough of a challenge, but our industry, let's settle for that, in so many ways, I felt had not been valued or recognized by government, and therefore did not have a voice at the table of government. And many of you would rightly say, you know, why have you got a politician here? You may not be interested in politics, but the reality is that politics is interested in you. It is governments of any colour, as we know, that will tax you, will put the tax structures and incentives in place for your businesses. And is that a drill or is that a motorbike? I shall speak over a DeLorean. There must be an expert up here. Very impressive. But, you know, governments, they make trade agreements. As we become more international, you are now competing under terms and conditions set by politicians. How we employ people, the flexibility or otherwise of how we employ people is defined by politicians, or the courts in some cases. And the quality of skills available for us to recruit, which is actually a major challenge. That is in the hands, in many cases, of politicians. And we have never had our say in this industry for a number of reasons. And there's also specific issues that rightly should be concerning the industry. Air passenger duty, the immigration rules for visas for delegates coming in. Issues that are very specific to us as well. But again, we haven't been at the table. So I thought it was important that the industry created a voice, and we got that voice by getting 30 MPs, which is the minimum you need, from all different parties to form the all-party parliamentary group. And we set about with the task of trying to create a voice that could represent industry, but also that government could feed back to industry as well. And one of the first things we wanted to do was look at the UK as, was it a destination, a competitive destination of choice? And this was very much on the back of a mood from 2012 that we had actually delivered the best event in the world so successfully. But I was concerned that there was effectively that this could be the peak of what industry did, and that in no ways did it reflect the core events that go on around the country. And rather than be seen as a peak, I was keen that it became a catalyst for government to engage and for the industry to engage, to have its voice at a table. So we set around about with the all-party parliamentary group. And in so many ways, what you were doing in the industry was mirroring the government's needs and priorities, but they did not know it, and frankly, the industry did not know it. So if you like, we were building negotiating power, collateral with the government, but nobody was using it. Let me explain. You will probably not know this, but in 2010, there was a document published called the Growth Agenda. It set out the businesses and industries that the UK was good at, could thrive at, and could succeed at. It was a strategy, as close to an industrial strategy in many ways that a government was developing. And yet here was an industry that was attracting some of the brightest minds to some of the most significant events from industries that the government was desperate to inwardly invest here in the UK, and yet neither was talking. One was not supporting the other. The soft power that government can bring to help us win bids and bring major events here to the UK was completely unrecognised by the government itself. They weren't even supporting bids to bring major financial shows, major health shows, major industrial events, which actually was effectively having potential investors from these key industries pay lots of money to come to this country so that we could show off this country, not therefore just for a temporary destination of choice, but perhaps ultimately a permanent investment of choice, most notably in those industries under the growth agenda like the life sciences. So our goal was to demonstrate the value of this industry. Close to 40 billion is indeed an impressive figure, but it is actually the additional expenditure around that business events are bringing in each business tourist brings in 75% more yield than a leisure tourist, that the quality of the customer that was coming in was crucial. And yet as a country, we had barriers to that. And these barriers had to be broken down, and we had to lead the argument to persuade government to break those barriers down. In one particular report that I can't even remember the name of, when you come to London, it ranked as something like the 46th most welcoming destination in the world. That isn't good enough for a city and a country that aspire to be the #1 in the world for business events and destinations. And these were the sorts of examples that were emerging, how the immigration visas, the lack of visas that were holding back Britain being a destination of choice compared to other countries. Our absence from Schengen Agreement, the difficulties for the Chinese particularly. All of these were just little frustrations that could be easy wins if government recognized them. So I was very pleased when Sajid Javid, the new culture, well, not that new now, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, which, if you happen to know, is the department that is responsible, if you like, for taking an interest in our industry, at the World Travel Market, spelt out that he is now working and wishes to work with industry to establish common goals, break down the barriers to help the industry thrive, but he's asking industry to engage. And that actually engagement process is coming to a close soon. And I don't know if anyone knows in this room, but December the 1st is the deadline for any contributions from any business to the consultation period that will lead to a strategy, a government and industry strategy being published in February. It's been hosted by the Britain for Events website. You are free to access it, to consult on it, and put in your opinions, either as an association or as individuals. And I urge you to do that, because I remember when we did the APPG All-Party Group report, the first feedback I got was, why wasn't I consulted? Why weren't we represented in this? And the reality was, magnificent efforts had been made to alert the industry to what was going on so we could take evidence and then reflect that in a report. But the actual response from the industry, while significant, should have been a lot better, but it wasn't. So let's not miss this opportunity that if you want to help have a voice at the table, to help government help you and vice versa, then please do take advantage of the consultation period. And I think it's interesting. What will the government do with this? Well, it will set its strategy as quite simply as to obviously protect and retain, if you like, and grow existing events that are coming into the UK. That goes without saying. But it is asking industry, what are the new events? Where should we be? What are the type of events that we want to bring into this country? And then it will help to shape and offer the assistance, both in soft power and practical policies, to help engage with that. For example, I know that when other countries are bidding, the local mayors of the cities, the key senior ministers from within the governments are all there telling the delegations how important it is that we bring this event to the UK, to their country. We don't do that. We've started to do it. It's getting better since we raised this with the government, and they've now created that facility. But actually, until a year ago, after having made it on offer to industry, to invite those bidding for business to actually seek a government endorsement or support for the major events, after 1 year, there had only been one application. So we've ratcheted it up, we've increased the profile of it, and I'm pleased to say it's getting better. Just an example of soft power of how we can help demonstrate to those people making decisions that we want them here and we want them to do business. Now, what can we work on to actually deliver practical assistance to the industry? Well, the sorts of things I've outlined will make a difference, but I do think that the case the industry makes has to be stronger, and it can be stronger. If you like, we now have to show what we are doing for the economy and what we are doing to meet government's agenda. For example, government are passionate about apprenticeships. And in this industry, right across the broad range of this industry, apprenticeships are flourishing. But we don't have the data. We don't know how many there are. We can't actually crow on our trumpet how well we are doing. And I really have to stop saying we, because it's not me anymore. But that is the reality. How well is the industry doing? These are the sorts of arguments that I think we can put forward to help government understand what we can do for them in return for getting government to support and take this industry forward. Perhaps the greatest challenge we've overcome, but we need to build on, is this. When the politicians went to the Olympics, they saw an Olympic spectacle. They saw fantastic running, fantastic athletics. When they go to an outdoor concert, and yes, some of them do go to outdoor rock concerts and festivals, when they go to an exhibition and they're dragged along there by the family, they see the exhibition, they see the concert, but they do not see the fantastic industry that is behind that event. The employees, the jobs, the services, and that's the difference we've started to make. But I want us to now represent this in a formal consultation process so that the voice will be heard at the table. And we have to overcome some of the weaknesses that were highlighted by that excellent panel earlier. For example, the temptation to speak as your organization, the temptation for other organizations to speak on behalf of their members is understandable. But actually, if all the organizations speak with one voice, it packs so much more punch, and it will define the full scale and weight of the organization rather than working in isolation and sometimes potentially in competition. And it's when we brought them all together that the scale of this magnificent industry becomes all too clear. And that's where we need to go. Never forget, for an industry that binds teams together, that brings a large supply chain together, that from the top to the very bottom is a magnet for bringing people into this country, that it's a great opportunity to actually collectively sing with one voice about what we want and what we want from government and vice versa. Notwithstanding that, I haven't mentioned the magnificent contribution of exporting of this industry. And it is a magnificent challenge. In fact, it's so magnificent, the exports that we do around the world, with the shows that go on around the world, that is one of the reasons government are interested. They can't quite understand why all the clients want to go to other places in the world and not coming to what they understandably think is the best place in the world. And that is something that they have to look at and understand, because that is also the competition, what is going on elsewhere in the world. And that is why we have to get our visas sorted. That is why we have to continue pressing the case for such things as air passenger duty. But we also have to make sure that we're proving we are driving value into the UK economy. And that really is the key message. But government now should no longer just be focusing on making rules and regulations. All the salesmen and women in this room know the value of networking, of positioning themselves, of positioning their companies and seizing every opportunity. Did you know, until 2011, our staffing in our business arms of the embassies barely numbered about 5% of the total staff. Now, each and every embassy is charged with selling the values and the key professions, including the creative industries, in those embassies, supporting businesses when they go out there, making their services available, supported by the UKTI. Exporting now and the creative services are one of the key touchstone growth economies that every time a minister goes abroad is talking about, selling the top-end value, the fact that Britain is good in education skills and all the others, and creative is there. It is there because it deserves to be there, but it will only be there so long as we capitalize on it and make sure our voice continues to be heard and build on it. That was my mission 4.5 years ago, to give this fantastic industry a voice at the table and be heard. Well, we are at the table, we are being heard, but it is crucial that we maintain the momentum until the government strategy is out, and, you'd expect me to say this, on the basis there is no change of government, we continue to push the same strategy with the same people right through and beyond the next election. Because one thing's for certain, my profession doesn't offer much job security. Your profession is going to go on and on and on, evolving in a new age and evolving greater revenues for the country. Let me give you a comparison. The 40 billion of this industry reflects pretty much what we spend on education in this country. So every time we're taking tax dollars off you or tax pounds off you, you make a magnificent contribution to the company. I want to take less off you. I am a tax-reducing conservative. I will always argue that you know how to spend your money far better than governments know how to spend their money. But I want the total take to go up. And that will only go up, I think, substantially if you continue to be successful and government's job is to ensure it helps you be successful. I want to thank you because I met David Cameron recently when he was in a good mood, not talking about Rochester. And he had come back from CeBIT. I think it was CeBIT in Germany some months ago. He was certainly in Hanover. It might have been the trade fair. And he turned round to one of his staff, having seen all 36 halls or whatever it is at Hanover now, and a quite magnificent show. And he said to them, why can't we do this? The civil service didn't quite give the answer that I would have given. My answer would have been, you know what? We have some of the world's leading shows, and we can put on the very best shows in the world, but we need government to help us do that through the infrastructure, through the relaxation of the laws, some of the regulations, change some of the rules, help us to help you. He gets that. He's very much trying to be the #1 salesman for Britain, and I'm pleased it's caught his eye. It's now in the government process. Let's not lose this opportunity to make government work for your industry, because you'll pay back in dividends. Thank you very much. Do any questions?
Thanks, yeah. Nick's kindly agreed to take any questions. So and we got a mic so we can hear the questions clearly as well. Have we got any questions from the floor? At the back.
You're going to ask me what the website is, aren't you? It's Britain for Events. If you go to their website, it's there. Okay.
My question is, you mentioned about the visa process and how the Chinese, which is one of the most buoyant economies as we know at the moment, cannot automatically, if they come to Europe, come onto London because of the Schengen visa.
Yeah.
Do you know, or can you say when that is likely to change so that these people can then more easily get across to London if they're in Paris, say?
Yeah, I won't put a date on it, but what I do know is that for about 3 years we were banging our heads against the table, and now the Home Secretary is involved with the Culture Secretary. There are security implications. What they're trying to do is overcome that. I fully anticipate there being an announcement on how this will be dealt with in February, which is when the industry will report back. So in your submission, sorry, not the industry report back, the government strategy, highlight the issue. I believe, actually, they're also accepting, however, visas when people come in through Southern Ireland on this route. Now, it sounds a bit tortuous, but it's an attempt to just short-circuit it in the short term, because that's not quite Schengen. It's kind of the S of Schengen, if you like, but it's an attempt. But I'm fully expecting this to be reflected in the February announcement, when hopefully the DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, will report. I can't bind them, by the way, because I'm not part of the government. I've been a naughty boy. I've rebelled a few times, so I'm stuck on the fringe here, you see. So, was that a boo or a... Was that a boo, did I... You're meant to cheer that. It's meant to be an independent-minded MP. There. It's better.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you've talked a lot about London and bringing events to London. What about the rest of the UK?
Well, actually, if I did, that was a gross error in many respects, because I've been working very closely with Visit England, very much to do that. And I've also, the government, by the way, I should stress this, they're also looking at best practice from Scotland and Ireland, for example, and will be, part of the response will be where it makes sense to act together, we will act together with the devolved powers. I think, you know, the tourism, the leisure tourism, a key part of that is outside London. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And all the evidence shows, I think we had the best year for leisure tourism, with people coming to London and then feeding into the rest of the country. What I'm really pleased to see is where local regions have got together, such as Liverpool, who have very imaginatively developed what's going on up there. They are very much part of the strategy and the sale. But you will know as well as I do that what defines and limits the events is going to be the hotel space, it's going to be the ease of access and destinations, it's a type of event you're doing, our whole airport strategy is crucial, and frankly HS2 is going to be pretty crucial on those developments as well. But it won't be responding just on London by any means. In fact, the government strategy is to try and push more, not of the events necessarily, but much more of the economy from the southeast, where about 75% of the economy is, into the rest of the country.
Any more?
I have a quick question, just on Earls Court actually.
Yeah.
I know we're going to tear it down, and I don't get why we're doing it when I think it's an iconic event venue that would help, international events. Because I think to host a good international event, it has to be really in London. Although I'd love it to be in Birmingham, I still think it has to be in London. It is our major city. But I don't get why we're tearing it down.
Well, I've got dreadful memories of Earls Court, I have to say, when I was a project manager, so I'll try and keep my own view out of it. I still remember the name of the guy who controlled the lift in the 80s, for those of you old enough to remember. Yeah, I used to pass a lot of cash then, the taxman wouldn't have been happy. Those were the days. Look, we took evidence on this, and we were actually discussing subvention, this idea that some countries basically bung cash into the pockets of bidding countries, say, we'll give you free travel, we'll do this, which is kind of not what we do here. And actually, an international buyer who gave evidence to the APPG report, which again is online, actually said, you know what? You need a massive, brand new West London venue. That's how you'll get more business. But had absolutely no love or affection for Earls Court. In fact, I think went out of the way to say, don't even think of Earls Court to us. So the problem is with that, I had limited evidence. Written evidence supported it, but it wasn't a lot of evidence that was given at the time. We had no representations from Earls Court or anyone else at all. I am inclined to agree that we need a West London venue. I'm not inclined to agree that it should be Earls Court, but that is only my opinion, and I'm not the planning minister. I'd be interested in any other views on Earls Court, because I do find it's one of those issues that brings up a lot of emotion, but as I say, I almost shake at the thought of it.
I mean, you're right, perhaps it needs a bit run down, but, flatten it and build a brand new purpose-built.
Well, that is a perfectly reasonable thing, but of course we have devolved powers here. And this is where, actually, it's no use lobbying government. It's actually mayors have to come on board where there are executive mayors and regional government. They even have the power now to be able to hold a local referendum. If a city said, look, we want to be a destination of choice for conferences and events, they could have the power to raise public money and private if they wish, go to a referendum and say, this is the economic payback. Do you want to do this? So I think, regions have to get involved, and I would say don't stick to boundaries of boroughs or whatever these things are. Look at a region and talk, get together, go through the organisations for that.
Talking of mayors, though, transport, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. We still don't always have a tube service to Olympia when events are running.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I feel less offensive about Olympia as well. I'm quite fond of Olympia in a way. But I think two things have got to happen. First of all, we've got to go to 24/7 tube, which I think will be coming. We will actually see. This is the frustration, and as a good Conservative, I almost grieve a little bit about that, because we don't have a public transport system in the true sense of the word, where it's run by the state. TfL is a private company, and it will make its decisions accordingly. What we have to do is make the business case as to why this should be running more reliably and more frequently. And if there is a business case, they will do it. But of course, although there's a subsidy of sorts, it's absolutely customer-driven, the business. This is why you couldn't get a subsidy. The Mayor of London could not go and say, well, he could say it, but he couldn't order it. He couldn't say, look, offer free travel for 3 days and I'll get you 10,000 of the biggest buyers to come and spend loads of dosh in London, Birmingham, Manchester, wherever it is. And actually, TfL just go, we got nothing to gain by that, rather than looking at the wider economic benefit. And that is a challenge for us. But that is a challenge that can be sorted. It should be sorted, but it needs local leadership to do it. So if I announce a bid for Mayor of London or Manchester or Birmingham, I'll let you know and we'll try and crack it there.
Okay.